After decades of being kept under wraps, over 2,800 records related to the assassination of John F. Kennedy are now available to the public.
Thousands of pages were published on the National Archives website yesterday. They describe decades of spying and surveillance assassination plots and tension among U.S. intelligence agencies. For more on these formerly classified files, we are joined now by presidential historian Doug Wead, who's in Washington. Good to see you, Doug.
Remember how giddy Doug was yesterday when we spoke to him?
Yeah.
And we thought it was going to be 37 Bibles worth of information, and then a lot less came out.
A lot less, Doug.
A lot less. Yeah, and they cut off some of the best parts, too.
So what stuck out to you so far? What has stuck out to you?
You know what's impressed me? A couple of things. One, kind of sad, poignant, that so many journalists pursued some of these stories and were ridiculed by their colleagues and fired by producers and editors and publishers and board members out in Connecticut somewhere for pursuing a story that now turns out to be true. Some of those journalists aren't alive to see this day and see the confirmation. That struck me as really sad. Napoleon said that history is that version of events that people have decided to agree upon, but history isn't always the truth.
So true. Revealed in the documents are really sort of the number of different ways in which the American government considered assassinating Fidel Castro. Can you talk about some of the plots that were uncovered or discussed in the documents that were revealed?
Yeah, and you know, some of the younger viewers may not understand how morally you could even have a policy of assassination, but the CIA, as you know, came out of the OSS, and that came from World War II, and the thought was, is it morally acceptable to assassinate Hitler? And the answer was yes. So you even have today that question upon us, is a nuclear war better than the assassination of Kim Jong-un? You have that same nagging question, but we apparently tried to kill Castro. And once again, I'm reminded of a documentary in the UK a number of years ago that was entitled 638 Ways to Kill Castro. It was heavily ridiculed as British tabloid press, but some of those ways came out in the documents that I was reading last night and am reading this morning. So sometimes the journalists there in the newsroom that's the subject of ridicule, we ought to give them a little bit of room and a little bit of time to listen to their ideas.
Did they talk about exploding cigars? I don't know if that was in any of the documents, but yes. I know that was really.
Or making his beard fall out.
Really?
Or giving him clothing that was dusted with, bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
And what was confirmed was the mafia connection, that the mafia had someone who worked in his food services department, and that was the person the CIA, when they approached the mafia, that was the person they hoped would commit the crime.
And didn't they also contemplate basically creating a food crisis in Cuba in the hopes that the people in Cuba would overthrow him?
Yes, and I'll tell you what really struck me, Vlad and Anne-Marie, is that so many of the questions that the American people asked were questions that LBJ and Richard Helms asked. Richard Helms at one point in these documents said, is he one of us? Is Oswald, has he been an agent of the CIA? That's a question some blogger in Tulsa would ask and be laughed at. But this is the director of the CIA, and there was no answer. They didn't redact it. They just didn't include it. I guess we got to wait a few more months for the answer. And then you have LBJ postulating this theory, saying that, well, JFK was assassinated because of the assassination of Ngo Dinh Diem in Vietnam, who was a fellow Catholic and friend. That's not some blogger out there. That's the President of the United States. So I came away with a little more respect for the American people. They were asking the right questions. You can see that in these documents.
Well, one of the documents obtained by the CIA, Doug, suggests that Lee Harvey Oswald was an agent of Castro.
That's right.
What other rumors did you see, and is that one that can be substantiated?
Yes, that's right. No, a lot of them can't be substantiated. A lot of what we're reading are the speculation of others. It's just fascinating to see that speculation and to see these stories confirmed. Another really sad one to me, Vlad, was the comment by J. Edgar Hoover to Robert Kennedy. There's a book coming out next year about your relationship with Marilyn Monroe. That book never came out. The first book to come out was about 15 years later. So my thoughts in this Me Too moment after Harvey Weinstein, I thought of Marilyn Monroe, who took her own life. You know, she was at the top. She was hobnobbing with the Kennedys, but nobody believed it. No journalist believed it. The FBI was squashing it, and how lonely she must have felt. And now, and the story was, hey, yes, eventually after 30 years, we accepted John Kennedy had some indiscretions with women, but Bobby Kennedy was the family man. He was the good Kennedy. But it turns out here's this story coming out. It's fascinating.
Yeah, 50 years plus after the assassination of President Kennedy, it continues to fascinate America and the world. Doug Wead, as always, we thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Vlad.